Okay, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're joining from today. My name's Paul Fisher. I'm a pre-sales engineer based out of the UK, but covering EMEA and I suppose further as well at times. Thank you for taking the time out to join us today. Firstly, before we start, just want to hope you're all well and your families are well and keeping safe. With that, today we're looking at Parallels RAS and providing remote access to ensure business continuity. So just by way of an agenda, we'll have a quick look at who is Parallels, in case you've not heard too much of us before. That'll be just a brief introduction. Looking at some remote working facts and figures, and looking at the trends of how remote working's coming along. And then we'll get into an overview of Parallels RAS and a live demo. And then if we've got time, we can open it up for Q&A and briefly talk about next steps. So Parallels then, it's a global company, offices dotted all around the world, millions of customers, business to consumer and business to business customers. A lot of the sort of Fortune 500 as well are using our products. Fairly recently, we became part of the Corel family, which is great. Give us even more presence and more resources to invest in RAS and our other products. So, speaking of the other products, our current portfolio looks a little bit like this. Over on the left, we have Parallels Desktop, and that's really what we're most famous for, and actually where the name Parallels came from, and that's about running Windows applications and desktops in parallel to your Mac applications on your Mac. We have Parallels Toolbox for Windows and Mac, which is a bunch of really useful tools for everyday tasks. Parallels Access, just to provide simple remote access to maybe your PC or maybe your server from wherever you are. And then we have Parallels RAS, or Remote Application Server, which is its true name, but we shorten it to RAS, which obviously we're going to be talking about today. And then finally, on the right, we have Parallels Mac Management, which is a plugin for SCCM, and that allows you to manage your Mac estate within the same infrastructure as your Windows estate. So essentially it's to plug into SCCM to help you do that. Okay, so looking at some of the key facts and the trends of recent. So 50% of the US and UK workforce will be working remote by 2020 from Forbes. I hazard a guess, given the current situation, that we might have already met that, but that was the prediction before, obviously, the COVID-19. 66% of companies allow remote work, and 60% of those users are fully remote. So again, that global trend's going up. There's more and more companies allowing remote access and working from home. And 90% of the top 10 IT companies have already implemented work from home, or WFH, as we shorten it to as well. And really the number one reason for the growth and the adoption of the cloud is to provide that data access from anywhere. So definite trend of moving and allowing and opening up remote working opportunities, even before the current situation, which has just accelerated it considerably. And as we all know, and as mentioned, the current COVID-19 has kind of forced people to work from home. And I guess what we can do with work from home is get your businesses back to working near normal capacity, as opposed to maybe just a skeleton capacity, with the social distancing within offices. So that's becoming obviously big news and something to talk about, and hence why I think we see so many of you joining today. So what is WFH? Work from home. Quite simply, it's working from home or remote working, and really considered a kind of natural extension or evolution of the current workplace. So it's about giving the employees all the tools that they have in the office from home or from anywhere, for that matter, whether it's a core business, bespoke applications, email, instant messaging, and obviously virtual meeting tools and social tools there as well. Some advantages of working from home. Now, this slide was really put together before the current COVID-19 pandemic. So really, the main and most important one is the title of this webinar today, which is ensuring business continuity. So ensuring that business can continue when we have such a restriction on people need to work from home if possible, or maybe other countries they have to. I suppose that's really a bit of an unforeseen advantage, something, as I say, has been enforced on us, but probably the most critical out of all of these advantages there. But generally, looking outside of that scenario, talent attraction. So really just making the job as flexible as possible, so that users can be productive in their own time when they need to do it. And an obvious example would be working around childcare and meeting that. But it allows you to attract the better talent because you've got that facility to be flexible. Allows employee productivity to increase. They can work from home, so they can extend their hours should they want. Not something I'd recommend forcing, but it gives them the opportunity to catch up with things and do certain tasks in their own time. And that's in hand with employee satisfaction, so that they're happier, they're working how they want and when they want, and that can help with employee retention as well. So how does Parallels enable remote working? Well, there's a number of ways, and I'll talk about them all in much more detail in the live demo. But kind of headlining mobility. So remote application server is about providing access securely remotely to office workplaces for the users. So that's a key driver, and that's a key thing that we're looking for with remote working or work from home. Line of business applications can be accessed again from anywhere, from any platform, and that can just be over a web browser, nothing else. HTML5 compliant, that can be accessed. And then we've got support for virtual desktops and many forms of that virtual desktop. And as I say, I'll get into that more as we go through. And again, as mentioned in the previous slide, that productivity, and we can empower the workers just to get their job done efficiently and within their timescales when it suits them. So, remote application server then, essentially it's about providing access to Windows applications and desktops from any device, anywhere, anytime. But the key benefits of RAS are some of these on the screen now, and starting with extremely easy to use, and that for customers already, wanting to quickly enable work from home scenarios that had customers in the previous weeks doing this already, has proven itself over and over again. We can really quickly get the solution deployed with very little infrastructure and get users working from home. And part of that is the flexibility and the platform agnostic side of remote application server. So as we support lots of different technology, whether that's on-premise hypervisors or cloud platforms, we can integrate in with the customers, with your infrastructure today, and also importantly not lock you from making any changes going forward. So just because you implement Parallels RAS, you're not stuck to a specific platform. We can change and grow with your needs. always security is at the forefront of everything that we do, and just by the nature of remote application server, given that all the applications desktops are in the data center or in the cloud. More importantly, the data is also within that data center. Then we're just inherently more secure. But any ways in which the users will connect is also encrypted and secured, and we can include two-factor authentication and SAML authentication as well to increase that security further. Reduced costs and complexity. Already mentioned about how easy it is to deploy, but going forward after deployment, day-to-day management, the fact that it's easy to use and manage reduces costs. Moving forward, upgrades are really straightforward and easy as well. On-demand agility. So whether we're deploying on-premise or in the cloud, we can have sort of those cloud-like capabilities. So as demand grows, we can automatically increase the infrastructure, based off templates, etc., to match accordingly as that demand increases. And just as importantly, when the demand decreases, we can sort of scale that down automatically as well. And that can have cost benefits, especially if we're talking about cloud deployments. Any device, anywhere. Again, I already mentioned that, but we do have platform-specific clients for pretty much every client that you want to connect with. That's Android, iOS, Linux, obviously Windows, thin clients. Then we'll have a client for that to allow you to connect. So looking at some of the core capabilities, I'm not necessarily going to go through all of these because I'll highlight some of these more within the demo. But obviously, top left, application, desktop, and delivery is a core capability, and that's what, as mentioned, we're about delivering those Windows applications and desktops. We're cloud ready. We have the HTML5 capability. We can support multi-factor authentication to increase that security. We have AI built into remote application server, and we're improving that all the time as we go through new releases. So session pre-launch, so we're looking at learning the users' habits of launching applications, so we can predict when they're going to open a certain application. We can speed up that login as a result of that. SAML authentication gives us lots of flexibility and increased security to support. We have API integration with PowerShell and also REST API. Built-in load balancing. We have client management when we sort of look at perhaps repurposing PCs as thin client-like devices. That's what we talk about with client management. We can support application virtualization, auto scaling and provisioning, again, as mentioned, universal printer support, client policy, so we can manage everything centrally from a client perspective. So yeah, hopefully from that, throwing a lot of features at you there, you get to see that we are an enterprise level solution with all the kind of features really that you need to securely deliver applications and desktops to your users, but at a very cost-effective solution point of view. So I say that because we're not just looking at licensing costs. We're looking at being able to deliver the right desktop to the right user, and not, let's say, pushing desktop-based VDI to all our users just because a small handful of users need them. We can deliver the right desktop to the right user. So nearly at demo time already, but just a couple of slides just saying what some of our customers are saying, and really it's focusing around being able to quickly provide a solution and get users access to their desktops. So here again, Parallels RAS makes it simple for IT admin to support any device that the students and teachers prefer to use, and save us hours of setup time. So it's more of a sort of bring your own device, I guess, reference. And here we go again. So Parallels RAS was easy to deploy. It allows us access to applications from anywhere, from any device, including Chromebooks. Okay, so let me come out of this screen and minimize this. So I'm going to start from the administrator side. So I'm just bringing up this connection. So I've already connected to my one of my servers. I've already opened the management console, so that's what we're looking at here. I've gone to the farm section and I'm looking at a particular site. So under farms, we can have multiple sites, and they can constitute many different things. It can be, we could have many on-premises sites, to maybe different locations within the organization, or maybe we have one on-premise site and another site that's in Azure. If you wanted, you could have another one in AWS as well. And that means we can manage those sites under this farm all from the one console. And actually, we can manage multiple farms as well. We can connect to different farms if we want to, if they're sort of isolated environments for different customers or different data centers. I'm looking at the design of this particular site. It's a good place to start. Gives you, a feel or an overview of what a fairly typical solution might look like. Obviously, this is my lab, and we can obviously deploy in different scenarios if we're talking about DMZs, and depending on the numbers and the type of desktops we're delivering, this could change. So this is a dynamic diagram. As we add components to it, it will change to reflect. But up at the top here, we've got the secure client gateways. They do two things. They provide the HTML5 portal, which I'll show you shortly, and also the secure remote proxy. So when users are connected remotely, from home, they will connect over a secure port, 443 typically. So we don't need to expose 3389 or anything like that. And then they will be connected to their back-end infrastructure, which I'll go through in a minute. Then we have the publishing agents, which is essentially the brains of the solution. So it's involved with lots of things when it comes to authenticating users, applying that additional two-factor authentication or SAML authentication. It's involved with presenting what applications, the users, applications or desktops that the users can are entitled to and can access. It's involved with load balancing when we're looking at the session host servers. So as I say, it's the brains of the solution. Now, what's key here is you might notice I've got these host names here, RAS1 and RAS2, and they're sort of depicted on both. I've basically got two virtual machines in my lab, and I've doubled up the roles. So they're hosting both the secure client gateway and the publishing agents. But with that, I have a highly available and highly scalable solution, with just the two virtual machines. Now, in addition, I should mention that we would typically have the Parallels RAS HALB that sits in front of the secure gateway to load balance those, and they're configured over here. And as a side note, everything that I talk about component-wise is included in the RAS license. So there's no additional, you want to connect remotely, or you want to deploy in the cloud, or you want to support this hypervisor or this hyperconverged platform. You need a separate license. It's none of that. It's all the same license. And that high availability is without the requirement for an expensive, centralized, highly available database server or data store. And so, really, with those two VMs, very simple infrastructure can provide us a highly available, highly scalable solution. And then we've got the back-end infrastructure. Now, up at the top here, we have session host servers, or terminal servers, as we used to call them. Now, these really are the most cost-effective way of providing access to applications or desktops. So depending on the number of users you want to support from home. It could be that you stand up a solution with a couple of virtual machines, and actually you can enable a session host role on here as well. So a couple of virtual machines there, and you could be supporting get close to 100 users for their applications, potentially depending on the size of the servers we set up or the instances that we set up. So yeah, from these we can publish applications and desktops. We call that session-based VDI. Again, many to one, so a cost-effective way. And also important to note with the flexibility within that, we can support operating systems as far back as 2008 through to 2019, which is good to note around application compatibility. So if you've still got let's call them legacy applications, maybe in-house developed applications that can only run on older operating systems, then we can support that and make users really sort of unaware of what operating system they're connecting from. We can just present the applications to them, and one can be from 2008, one can be from 2019, etc. Then we have sort of the traditional VDI, or what we call desktop-based VDI. So Windows 10. If we're looking at 1,000 users, you need 1,000 instances of Windows 10. Obviously, you can see there the impact on the infrastructure, but we can support that. And again, we can support Windows 7 through to Windows 10 within that within those environments. So we could have different groups of those VDI servers. And then finally, we have remote PCs. Now, this is actually sort of, I suppose, traditionally use cases would have been around a lot of education would use these to sort of enable the labs to be accessed remotely and out of hours, so sort of to give more access to the high-powered PCs that they got in the labs within universities, etc. But obviously, with the current situation and with COVID-19, we've seen that remote PCs have become very popular, and that's really because a lot of people have got scenarios where they've got traditional PCs under their desks in the office, and VPNs, etc., have become or are okay for small numbers, but configuring it for masses becomes difficult and potentially expensive as well. So yeah, what we found is, going back to these, is with a couple of virtual machines, people have been able to stand up a RAS environment really quickly and then provide access to the user's PCs that are under their desk. And that's meant not only the speed, but it's also meant really little infrastructure requirements. They're not looking at a fully fledged VDI setup and all the infrastructure that needs to come in and around that. The PCs are already there. They're already got the resource required, and also on top of that, they're already configured. So all the applications that they need are already configured. So they literally, users can go home, connect to a web browser, and get into their remote PC really quickly and continue their job as they would in the office. So yeah, as I say, it's been really important, the remote PCs, during this current scenario. So once we have our infrastructure set up, however that might be, the next step really would be to publish some resource. And to do that, we come to the publishing section here. So you can see here, I've got a bunch of applications, including Office, etc., already deployed. Got some desktops. So the different types of VDI that we talked about, so session-based VDI, desktop-based VDI, and then remote PC-based VDI. To add something new, click on this wizard, and we have some options here. So we can publish just applications, or we can publish the full desktop. So we obviously choose whichever we want to do. We can support application virtualization as well. Can just publish web links or access to a document or users file share. I'm going to choose application here because there's a little bit more to see as we go through. So I'm going to choose session host, but we can publish applications from VDI desktops or remote PCs as well. And I'm going to choose installed applications, and I'm going to ask it to look at this cloud group. This could take a few seconds. Oh, there we go. So what it's done is looked at all the servers, looked at the available applications for me to deploy, and then I can just simply go through and choose the ones I wanted to publish, click next, an overview of what we're doing, and we click finish and apply. And that's done. You know, they're published, ready for users to connect to. We can come and look at some of the properties and change them if we want. You know, change the names. We can apply that filtering, so we can say certain users or user groups are only allowed to launch Notepad++ here, or if they're connecting from certain devices, you know, from an iPad or from a certain subnet, you know, network location. So we can build up these, so we can say, you know, as a user of this, member of this group is connecting from this operating system in this location, now they're allowed to launch the application. We can also do file extensions or file association. So if users, let's say, haven't got Word or Office at home on their home PCs, but get a Word document sent to them, they can simply double-click on that, and that will launch with a RAS published application, typically Word, and allow them to edit that document as well. And we can also do some license metering as well, so we can limit the number of instances of a particular application maybe that has been launched. Now you saw me bring up that wizard to create a new application. The whole console is driven by wizards really, and if I come back to the farm and the design, even at the top of here, we can see we can get access to certain wizards. So we got add a new session host wizard. So within a couple of clicks, we can add in a new session host server. That's assuming that the server's up on the network and ready for us to connect to. So of course we can do the whole templating thing, and that's sort of handled in this VDI section. So we can add in a provider. If I bring up this provider wizard, you can see we've got virtualization there, and we got different types of hypervisors that we support. So all the sort of main ones. So they're sort of on-premise type setups or hypervisors that we'd want to support. If I go back and choose cloud computing, here you can see that we can add in our Microsoft Azure subscription and essentially treat Azure as a hypervisor. So on there, whether it's on Azure or on-premise hypervisors, we can then create templates and then manage the desktops that we create from that. You can have automatically spinning up depending on number of users logging in, and that also covers the session host server. So as a certain threshold gets met, let's say 75%, the servers are loaded, we'll automatically create new servers based upon one of these templates potentially. And we also have session management for VDI, and also the terminal servers. I've got a session there at the moment where we can remote control them, show the processes, maybe kill off a process if we want to, log them off, etc., etc. So yeah, there's wizards for all the different components, so we can quickly add those in, and all these can be done by API as well. Okay, so we've got an infrastructure. We've published some resource, so let's change hats a little bit and look at a user perspective. So we've got different ways in which users connected, and depending on your preferences or what you think your users will find the easiest, you can do things differently to suit. Potentially, external users more often than not might come in through the web portal here, and as previously mentioned, the big advantage of that is you don't necessarily have to install any client on the device that the user is connecting from. So obviously here I'm on a Mac. I do have a Parallels client already installed, so I can connect through there. And of course, as mentioned, we can do supporting clients as well. So different ways in which users connect. Let's start here through the portal. So we go ahead and log in. Now it checked during that login process that I got the client installed. So by default, if I double click, it'll launch with that client. But what I want to show you first is the launching of applications within the browser. So to do that, I'm just going to force it to go into HTML5. So I'll right-click, choose HTML5, and we just give that a few seconds while PowerPoint loads up. So it's a new session that we've created in there. So there's PowerPoint. So I'm going to create a document. And let's create another one as well. Go with this one. And then I'm going to click on this button. It takes me back to my application listing. I could also launch things from my favorites as well. But I'm going to launch Word as well. And let's create a simple document here too. Now, the reason for opening a few applications and creating those documents is, even though we're not connected to a full desktop, and again, we're just purely all within the browser here, I have the ability, or we have our own taskbar, if you like, to be able to flick between the different documents that I've got open, and then different applications as well. So I can flick between that, and obviously I can keep opening more. And that's very similar across all of our clients. The platform-specific clients. So if you connect through an iPad, etc., there are lots of enhancements to allow you to launch applications, desktops, quickly flick between those applications and documents, and zoom in. Support thumbprint, security login. So enhancements to the virtual keyboard as well. We can create one buttons for various keyboard combinations. So lots of things to really make those smaller form factor devices usable. Of course, going back to the screen here, we can also launch full desktops. Again, I'll force that in HTML5. This time it opens in a tab. And as you can see, it's a Windows 10 any second looking desktop. But this is actually what we call session-based VDI. Now, we do still, well, we've got some various features here, so we could go full screen. I can upload and download files, go to the shortcuts, clipboard support as well, and also the universal printing, works even through the HTML5 browser too. Okay, so let me minimize that and bring up this client here. So if I connect here, I'll just do a quick refresh. You can see the new applications that we've deployed. I can just go ahead and launch them from here, or as a user, and this can be done as administrator as well, I can send that shortcut to my desktop. And here's one that was automatically created when I logged in. So access to desktop-based VDI, but I might also want to look at or create a shortcut to my remote PC. Not that one, this one. So yeah, created lots of shortcuts there. Now that means really that as a user, I don't have to go to a web page. I don't have to open a client. I can just launch resource from shortcut on the desktop, and also in the Finder, so all the applications are available and searchable in the Finder and in the Windows world in the Start menu, and also on Android we can create the shortcuts as well. So it looks like an Android app, but actually it's a published app from Remote Application Server. So yeah, to give you an example of connecting to a remote PC, and this is my PC. So if we take the scenario of I'm working from home, which I am, and I want to connect to my PC in the office, then I can just simply click on here and then get connected to that device in my office. So again, nothing too much exciting here. So Windows 10 actually is a Windows 10 desktop. So it looks similar to the session-based VDI that we saw, but that's actually a remote PC. So really easy to access a PC under my desk and continue working with all the apps that we've got there. And just to give you quick example of this Notepad++. So this is, a published application, but rather running through the web portal that we saw. It will appear that it's running on the Mac device here. So now I don't want to update it. So there we go. Notepad++, and you probably know it's a very Windows application, but it looks like it's running on the Mac here. So yeah, we have choices. We can deploy full desktops. We can get them back to their PC under the desk. We can deploy a VDI for them, or we can deploy session-based VDI, or we can just publish the business critical applications directly to the user, and they can get access to that in much the same way as this Notepad++. Okay, so let's go back to the console here, just to highlight a few other things. So universal printing as mentioned. We also got universal scanning support. The device manager that I mentioned earlier, so you can see all the clients that have connected. But we can apply Windows devices and maybe pop them in a group, and then we can get some further management of those. So we can change some OS settings. We're not replacing the OS, but we can replace the desktop. We can put it kiosk, create a kiosk mode. So it just streamlines the user login process for the users. So as I said, if we're thinking of repurposing PCs to make them a thin client-like device, maybe that's a short-term thing before you look at thin clients on phase 2, let's say. Then we can help with that. We can see we can disable print screen, removable drives, change some firewall settings. We can enable shadowing. So that allows us to, if we're giving this console to our help desk operatives, they can power manage those devices. Actually, we can schedule those tasks as well. They can also shadow that device to help the user if there's any issues. So, in addition to shadowing sessions, we can shadow those devices if they're managed too. Policies, really important, really useful. Policies are essentially, I categorize it into two sections. Security, we might want to manage things from a security perspective, and then also just general management of configuration that we don't want users to be worried about. So we can do that through policies. So we might say, okay, external users, we don't want them printing. We don't want them being able to copy any data in and out of the environment. We really want to secure that data and keep it in our data center. Then we could apply some policy, so we can say, printing, we'll switch that off, clipboard will disable, drive redirection or file transfer, we'll switch all those off. It might be for a certain set of users, other users, CEOs, etc. We might trust them, so we can give them a policy that would allow those things. And then, as mentioned, just general settings. So we might want to tweak the performance settings. We might want to stop them from saving passwords in the client. We might want to manage the primary and secondary connections, which is a really useful setup or function. So if the primary connection doesn't respond, we can get the client to automatically connect and try a secondary connection. We can have multiple secondary connections too. So a really simple way of DR. So we could have a 2-farm scenario. Main farm is on premise, second farm is in the cloud, all set up to scale up based upon demand. And if the primary connection fails, we'll automatically log the users into the secondary one. But yeah, policies allow us to manage all those things centrally. And then finally, we have monitoring and reporting. And again, just to stress that all of these are part of the RAS license. So if you want monitoring and you want to enable reporting, you don't have to get a different license. It's just the one, and that license is also based on concurrent usage. So if we do have a user that's got some published applications from some session host servers and connected to remote PC, then that's just consuming one RAS license. But here you can see in the monitoring, We're basically just looking at information such as number of sessions, the CPU usage on various servers, and we can change which servers we're looking at, memory utilization, disk utilization, and then we also have reporting, which allows us to look at number of users, user sessions, who's logged in, applications they've used, and some other information like that. But the reporting is an open schema, so there's a lot of information in the database. And we although you can't see it here, unfortunately, we have a handful of reports shipped with it, but you can create and add your own, and they can be emailed out on a scheduled basis, create nice PDFs, etc. as well. Okay, so let me go back to the slide deck, and just go over some well, next steps really, and then I'll open it up for some Q&A because we are doing quite well for time. So play from current slide. If you're interested, we do have a free trial. You could head over to Microsoft Azure or AWS and search the marketplace for parallels, and probably literally in under 10 minutes you'd have a working server set up with some example applications to connect to, or desktops as well. So that's a really quick way of getting something to start testing, or you can trial in your infrastructure as well. So you can download an MSI. It's really small, just over 100 meg, and you can get a free 30-day trial license. Of course, if you want any further assistance or want to discuss any more with us, please feel free to contact us, and we'll be glad to help you with that. So let's have a look at the chat and the Q&A. So yeah, I've finished quite early today, so please, if you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A. So I'm just trying to get to, and I'll have a look at some of these. So okay, we've got some questions already. Is it multi-tender for one single installation? Can we have different clients, different groups? Okay. Yes, we do have multi-tenant scenarios that we can set up, and there are a few ways in which we can achieve that. We can have a shared environment, which could be a one farm setup, where users are sharing the same infrastructure. We could have that same shared environment, but with separated pools of session host servers or BDI pools. They could be on separate VLANs, etc. Or we can implement the multi-tenant architecture, where we will then start to share some of the common components, such as the halbs, the load balancers, and the secure gateways. And then they will be then routed to completely separate farms, so they can be completely isolated, with their own Active Directory, etc., etc. So the short answer is yes, we can support multi-tenant setups and environments. Let's see if we've got any more. Pricing might be difficult because I think we've got a fairly global audience. I can give you the list pricing in the UK. So it's a subscription-based, so a yearly subscription, and the list price in the UK is £66.66. So we converted from dollars, and yeah, so that's a yearly subscription. You can go for 2-year, 3-year, multi-year, and get discounts, etc. So that's the general price. Questions are coming in now, so let me go through. Can we deploy in VMware? Yep, absolutely. We support VMware as a hypervisor. You can deploy in there. Is there a link to the complete architecture documentation? Yes. Let me get the link and I'll post that in the chat. Bear with me 2 seconds. If you go to parallels.com, you will be able to find it, but let me post that in the chat. That link. I have a question saying, can you reach me? Yeah, if I pop in my email address in the chat window, please, if you want any more information or any more assistance, please email me there. Yeah, I see someone who's had a trial, but it's run out and interested in getting it renewed. Yeah, please contact us and we'll see what we can do with that. Average cost per VDI. It's quite a big question. You know, going back to what I said earlier about being able to deliver the right desktop to the right user. So going back again to we can deliver session-based VDI, desktop-based VDI, and remote PC. I mean, there is server-based VDI as well. The most cost-effective is session-based VDI because we can get many users connecting to one instance. We do have on that resources link that I've posted some white papers on deploying on in Azure that does go into costings and looking at the most cost-effective instance to deploy. There's a question there of scaling up, scaling out with the instances. So we do look at that, but it really does depend the cost. On are you deploying in the cloud? Are you on premise? What's the hypervisor that you got? What storage? That can range wildly with the costs. So a little bit difficult, unfortunately, to say the average cost per VDI, but you can bring the solution right down using session-based VDI. Actually, also on the resource links, there is a white paper looking at comparing costs between Parallels, RAS, and Citrix, and that we can be up to 50% cheaper than Citrix as a solution, so that might be of interest to you. No, bear with me, just read some more of these questions. Just jumping around. VDI setup, can we have something for remote support apart from VDI? Yeah, you can use remote PCs, so you can just very little infrastructure. You can connect back to the PCs in the office. Okay. Someone else is asking about the cost effectiveness of RAS compared to Citrix. Yeah, please see that link that I sent. There's a white paper again on there about being considerably more cost effective than Citrix. Thinking of small business, 5 to 10 users providing a pool of applications and service. Yeah, you could in that scenario just deploy a one server setup, which we often do for testing POCs. So essentially one instance if it was in the cloud, or one server. And then you could have the secure gateway, the publishing agent, and also the session host role all on one server. So that would easily support 5 to 10 users. Obviously, you just need to consider that it might not be a highly available solution if that operating system dies on us, but that's fairly rare these days. Touch wood. require a recording for this session and a step-by-step configuration manual for beginner. Yeah, we have recorded this session, so that will be available to you. Got the pricing, great. Can we do session-based VDI on KVM? Yeah, we can support KVM. Small phones VDI not going to work. In that case, would it be an option for remote support? Sorry, I don't quite understand that question. Any plans for Linux distribution? So currently, we support Linux from a client perspective, but not yet as a kind of a Linux virtual desktop. Although that does get requested. I believe it's on the roadmap, but I don't really have any timescales of when that might be released, unfortunately. What is the minimum yearly subscription? 15 is the minimum. Okay, so someone else is trying to set up and has got some questions. Yeah, please, I'll put in the my email address again. Please contact me separately, and then we can take a look at that. Okay, I think that's it from the chat. We'll have a quick look at the actual Q&A window. I've got someone asking a quite a specific application question around Sage 300. Yeah. Again, it might be best to contact me and we can take that offline and talk about it a bit more. And I think that's the questions all starting to dry up. So that leaves me just to say thank you very much for joining me today. Hope you found that useful, got some useful information on that. And really the takeaways are sort of different ways in which we can provide remote access to enable that business continuity. And obviously there's various advantages in doing that, especially in the current environment. So yeah, again, thank you very much. I popped my email address in a few times, so as I said, if you've got any questions, please reach out. So have a good day, keep safe, and hopefully speak to you soon. Bye-bye.